Hey, how's it going, guys? This is peer-to-peer mentoring. Um, Today we're gonna talk about a different pillar. We've been talking about a lot about business, about financial stuff. Now I want to dive into love and happiness. Basically, that's a really important pillar that we have in our lives too, because we need to be able to feel loved and appreciated. I mean, that's a life's necessity. And I want to just go ahead and dive in. It's kind of late right now. I don't, you know, let's and I do apologize for not posting sooner. It's just that it's been kind of busy really lately. And today I felt good enough to post something. Now this was a kind of difficult post for me because I just wanted to emphasize that everything that's talked about here, you know um, it's just hypothesis. It's just my point of view. It's what I think, and by any means that does not mean that you guys should do everything that I do, because or everything that or do anything that somebody else tells you to do, because something that might work for somebody might not work for you. So I just want to make sure I emphasize that, especially when it comes down to a sensitive topic like love and happiness. I mean, like before, basically, I want to talk about my personal. I don't want to get too much into details, but nobody taught us how to love. I mean, we knew we love because we love our parents, we love our brothers or sisters, or you know we love our grandma and stuff like that. We all love, but sometimes how we learn our love, for example, in in my representation of love with my parents, how my dad treated my mom, and not necessarily like treated her horribly or anything like that, but like I never really saw my parents love one another per se. I knew they loved us, but I never saw that representation of them loving each other. I never, they never showed it. So at some point in my life, it came to a point like, I believe there's a couple stages when you're with somebody. Um, there's the honeymoon stage where everybody thinks that, that they're going to stay in that honeymoon stage forever, where you just can't be apart. You're always together 24/7, and it's sweet and everything. But after a while, whether you're married or not married, it morphs into something. It starts turning into something different, and call it what you like it. You guys are used to each other. You guys been so long together that you guys don't need to do that. And it tends to happen. But what I believe is that a love morphs into something different as the time passes, and we have to be able to grow with it as well. Now, like I was telling you guys, what happened to me is that once the honeymoon stage wore off, I started to act a little bit like my father, meaning, I didn't, in public, I would never really hold my wife's hand. I never really showed affection. I loved my wife, and I knew she knew it, but at the same time, it started to become like this bland, this simple relationship where like it didn't feel like like we were in the like if we ever been in the honeymoon stage, if that makes any sense. And it wasn't until actually this book at work, and out of all the places, right, is at work, it was actually called um what was it called? It was called leadership. Oh yes, leadership and self-deception, thinking outside the box. Now I know the title sounds, like it's all about work. And that's the first thing that I thought when I got this book and they told me, hey, we're going to read this book. It was kind of like a book club at work. And, I thought it was going to be this boring stuff that was just going to involve, work and numbers and this and that. But as I read through the first chapter, it automatically, it grabbed my attention. I mean, this book just holds on to you because it hits home. And I didn't know that by the time I ended up reading this book that my life would change, and it did change. My life would change because of all the stuff that I learned from this book. Now, the book basically went into like how we think as a person, as a couple, and that sometimes we tend to be a little selfish and we deceive ourselves. Like, and the thing that hit me the most about this book is that all of the stories that it had inside, they were true stories. They were just, the names were different, and they didn't use the same states, the same companies, all that stuff they changed just to protect people's identities, and so nobody could be tracked down. But they were all true, and to some, and even now, like, I still remember some of the stories that that I read in that book, even though it's been about a year, maybe longer than a year, because it really opened up my eyes to seeing some of the stuff that I was doing wrong. And one of the stuff is thinking that just because your wife or your significant other knows that you love them does not mean that you don't have to say it as often, and doesn't mean that you guys shouldn't go out and spend time with you guys alone, with yourselves alone, if you have kids or stuff like that. Like, it's good to have those things, whether you guys been together for a month or 10 years. You guys have to be able to keep that alive. Like, I know the honeymoon stage, is probably doesn't really come back. I think doesn't really come back, in a sense of how it first was, and how you guys 24/7 couldn't get apart or nothing like that. But love grows, and it morphs, and it becomes something even more beautiful with a bigger foundation. But you have to be able to grow with it. Like, it does take work. You have to constantly become a better person in order to make it work. Like, you now see a lot of people separating, getting divorced, getting this and that, and I'm not saying that my marriage or that I'm an expert at relationships. That's not what I'm saying. Because everything has flaws. But how I go about problems now is way different compared to how I used to deal with them. Now I put myself in the other person's perspective, and sometimes I even refrain from saying some of the stuff. I refrain from, saying stuff that I don't mean, or I put a little more effort into the stuff that I do for her. For example, I had a talk with a friend actually a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about this, that as sometimes when you start becoming a little more successful, your time gets shorter and shorter, and at some point, I was talking to my friend and I told him, hey, well, what do you do when that happens, when your time gets shorter and shorter, and then your significant other starts to realize, like, hey, you're not spending as much time as you would with the family, and we feel a little bit set to the side and stuff like that. Like, stuff like that can happen, and if you don't talk, if you don't communicate, it could escalate. But my friend, we were talking, and he said, look, sometimes that happens, especially in his situation. He told me that his wife, he's also married, he said that his wife goes to school and he works, so when he comes home from work, his wife goes to school, so they don't see each other. They have like 3.5 hours between those time periods, where they see each other. And he says, sometimes it gets to me, but like, we know we're doing something, we're doing this effort for a reason. Like, she's going to school, she's going to become this and that, and I'm going to work, making sure that we have, the foundation, that we're able to, maintain ourselves, and everything's for a purpose. So then he said, so I leave these notes for her, like, I love you, like, I miss you, I can't wait to see you, like, these little things. And they've been married for a while, and these little things, they make such a big difference, such a big difference. And just don't forget about the details. It don't matter if you guys been married 10-15 years. Don't forget about the details, because the details is really what counts at the end of the day. You have to be, as happy as you can. Some people, for example, one of the examples that the book said that stuck with me was, you were driving your significant other's car back, and you borrowed it, or you're using it, and you saw that you had an empty gas tank. And we all think it. I mean, I thought it, and then I see empty, and it's late at night, and you're tired, and you just want to get home and rest, and you see that empty, gas tank. What I would do before is, I would just go home and be like, it's her car, I'll leave her the money, but she pumps the gas, that way, so I can save myself 5-10 minutes or whatever it takes to pump some gas. Because I was thinking to myself, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that, all these excuses, and you're like, and she can do it. She can do it. She's not as tired because I came home from work and I worked 12 hours or whatever. You make up these excuses in your head. That's why the book is called Self-Deception, because you're, deceiving yourself with all these excuses. And then you get home, you wake up, and you go to work, and then you get this angry text at the next day saying, you had the car, you knew that the gas was on E, and you didn't put any gas. I was late to work because of you. I didn't know this. At least you didn't tell me. Blah, the list could go on and on and on. And all you would have had to do was put a gas tank in it. Now it said, then on the book it explained, look, this is what happened because you made that decision, but look at what would have happened if you would have made this decision. So then the same thing, I'm driving home, see an empty gas tank, I'm tired, I'm beat, I'm all this, but then I go like, you know what? I'm going to think about my wife. I'm going to think about her, and I'm going to be like, okay, her reaction, okay. Well, no, you know what? I'm using her car. I'm gonna put gas. Something nice for her. That way, when she wake up tomorrow, she has to go to work or do groceries or errands or whatever, she'll have a full tank of gas. So then, I stop and I put the gas on the car. I get home. I go home. I go to sleep. I rest. And the next day, when I come home from work, I get this, like, top-notch dinner in my, when I get home from work, and I'm all surprised. I forgot, I forgot that I put gas in the car. It's been over, and then your wife comes home and your wife is there and she tells you, baby, like, I saw that I needed gas. I was about a quarter, to empty, and I saw that you put gas, and that was like such a, I love that you did that for me, and I didn't have to get gas, and I cooked this really good meal for you. Now, I guess, in the story, I think it was just an example. I don't think that actually happened, but I think it's an example. But that's a perfect example, because that could really have happened, sometimes you do something thinking that it's a little thing, but it can really, really mess up somebody's day. And then it causes a fight, and it just makes it a bigger problem. While if you would have done something a little bit different, tweaked it just a little bit, Even if you had to do a little extra effort, then it would have been okay, and then you would have had something better. Like, I'm not saying that every time you do something for your significant other that you should expect something in return. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to say, like like become a better person, become a better person. And it reflects like whatever you do. And if your partner, your significant other, like loves you and is willing to stick it out with you and everything, everything, I believe a relationship is like a mirror. If you're angry, if you're, sad, if you're depressed, if you're, all these things, that's how your partner's gonna feel eventually, because you guys live together, you guys share energy, you guys share everything together. And if you're happy and you do, good things, and you do details and everything, it's gonna come to a point where they'll want to do the same thing. They'll want to connect with you in the same level. And and that's something that I strongly believe, especially how I feel now. Like I said, I want to reemphasize that I do not have I don't know, I do not have a perfect anything. There's nothing perfect about my life, but I can tell you that this has been the happiest I've ever been in my life, because I've been able to, you know, open up my mind to the stuff that I wasn't open to, before. And that's what it is. We've, like, if I was just to go with how my parents loved one another, I mean, it's a different era now. And I guess I don't want to get too personal as well, but the fact of the matter is, you have to take relationships and partnerships and, significant others as work as well, because they deserve it. They're with you for a reason. You love them for a reason, and you have to show them that you love them, even though sometimes we feel like, hey, we married you, we've been with you for this long, of course I love you. Well, sometimes that's not enough. You have to show it. And I saw a video. I'm always talking about videos, but this video really hit home for me, because they were talking about what there's different types of, like, of ways that people like to get showed love. And it's so true. It said that the person in the video said, my wife, she portrays love as, gift gift given. So he says, to make my wife happy and to show her that I love her, I have to buy her these gifts. And they don't necessarily have to be expensive or anything. It just has to be that the thought went into it, and that you knew she was gonna love it. And he says, every time I do that, my wife, I could see it in her face. She radiates. She becomes this, this person that just, a kid, like, waking up on Christmas Eve type of, type of face. And which, and I realize, like, there's more to it. You might think, just loving a person is telling you and saying I love you, and, showing affection and this and that. But sometimes people have different ways of showing it. And then the guy went in on the video saying that, and he had a different approach to love. He said, the only thing my wife has to do for me is tell me I look hot, and that I'm good looking, and basically just affirming that he's really good looking and he's fine. That's his love. That's how you show him you love him, is by making sure that his self-esteem is tip top. And we have to figure out that stuff for ourselves as well, like what kind of person you are, and then and figure out your partner and what they like, and what kind of love style they are. Because I do believe that. I do believe that. Now, he said some more love styles, but I don't remember. I think I just remember the ones that hit home. So yeah, that's just a little food for the thought for today. Um, always, 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 always. Even if right now you might seem like you're in a place where, you know, nothing, where, like, I guess if you want to have better relationship, you know, like I said, I emphasize books, but there's other sources too. You can watch videos, you can, you know, research, you can read blogs, do all these things to educate yourself, because sometimes just what we do on our own is not enough.